Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a really dangerous blind spot, something that's probably hiding in your business right now. We're talking about the myth of the non-core process.
All right, let's just jump right in with a big question. Think about your support teams, IT, R&D, security. Are they just a cost you have to minimize, or are they actually a secret weapon just waiting to be unleashed?
So this way of thinking, it's way more than just a bad habit. It's a really deep-seated bias. And giving it a name is the first step to fixing what could be a huge weak spot in your company.
And here's what the source material calls it: perception bias. It's this, outdated idea that any internal team like IT, security, you name it, is just a support cost instead of a strategic asset. And look, this is way more than just words. It's a real structural flaw. It literally causes you to miss out on huge opportunities and, honestly, to completely underestimate some major risks.
Okay, so where in the world did this idea even come from? Well, it turns out it's basically a fossil. It's a leftover from a really old way of doing business, and for some reason, that thinking just never quite left the building.
It's really a combination of three things. First up, you've got these ancient accounting habits. The old org charts just focused on sales and production, and everything else, it got slapped with the label indirect charge, basically burying its value. Then you have what's called the black box effect. As teams like tech and security got super specialized, they started speaking a different language, right? And that kind of isolated them from the rest of the business. And third, and this one's a little tricky, is the customer-first fallacy. Now that sounds like a great idea, but it accidentally created this internal culture where some teams were treated like second-class citizens, more like outside vendors than actual partners.
All right, so now we know where this myth comes from. Let's talk about why it's completely, totally wrong. We're going to break down 4 big reasons why this old way of thinking just doesn't fly in today's business world.
This is all about a huge shift in mindset. The old way of looking at it was purely defensive. This is a cost, let's cut it down as much as possible. But the new reality, it's all about offense. It's seeing these teams as value drivers that you should be investing in and trying to maximize.
So reason number 1 is what our source calls impactful maturity. And this is huge. Just think about it for a second. Where did things like Agile and Scrum come from? Software development. What about ITIL, the framework so many companies use for service management? That came from IT. These teams, these so-called support functions, have gotten so sophisticated that the rest of the business is now adopting their methods. They're not just supporting anymore. They're actually innovating and leading the way.
Reason number 2 is something called critical transversality. That's a big word, but the idea is simple. These processes, they cut across the entire company. They're like the nervous system of the organization. If your security team is on point or your R&D process is humming along, that has a positive ripple effect everywhere. Plus, a lot of these teams have a governance role. They're the ones setting the standards for everyone else, which makes their performance even more critical.
Okay, and this leads us to reason number 3, and this one is a real game changer: competitive advantage. Seriously, for so many of today's top companies, their biggest edge isn't what they sell, it's how they do business. Think about it. A company can totally dominate its market just because its product development cycle is faster or its data analytics are just smarter than everybody else's. In those cases, that internal process, that's not support. That is the secret weapon.
And the fourth and final reason? These activities can actually be monetized. I mean, what if you could turn them into a whole new revenue stream? If your internal logistics team or your cybersecurity team gets so good at what they do, you can actually sell that expertise to other companies. It's amazing when you look into it. So many successful companies today actually started out as an internal support department for a bigger parent company. The thing you're looking at as a cost center could literally become your next big product.
So look, the evidence is pretty clear, right? We have to stop calling these things support. They are strategic assets, plain and simple. And this isn't just some academic theory. This is really happening out there. It's changing how entire companies are valued and even how they're bought and sold.
And this quote from Hamid Allah, the author of our source material, just hits the nail on the head. He says that a lot of companies are being acquired today not for their list of clients, but for one of their so-called support processes, like their incredible R&D, their product management, or their development process. They're buying the engine, not just the car. That perfectly captures the shift.
So, let's get to the bottom line here. Recognizing this shift, it's not just some interesting business trivia, it's absolutely crucial. Because clinging to this old myth of the non-core process, it's not just holding you back, it's a direct threat to your company's survival.
You know, the source material really drives this home. This perception bias is a fundamental structural weakness. It's a sign, a big one, that your organization is just not in sync with how the modern economy works. And if you ignore it, you're not just leaving money on the table. No, you're letting massive opportunities pass you by, and you're leaving yourself open to risks you don't even see coming.
So all this leaves us with one final and I think really important question for you. It's time to stop asking if you have a hidden asset buried somewhere in a support team. The real question is, which one is it, and what are you going to do about it? How are you going to unlock that potential? Because there's a very good chance your next huge competitive advantage is the one you've been overlooking this whole time.